with a charitable statement of each other's stated views. On the one hand, Roger thinks that if I followed Calvinism to its logical conclusions, I should concede that the Holocaust and natural disasters are caused directly by God, and that those condemned on the last day could justly blame God rather than themselves. In his view, the serious error of hyper-Calvinism is actually the position that follows most logically from Calvinism itself. In my view, it is not at all surprising that some Arminians have abandoned the classical Christian consensus concerning some divine attributes and original sin, and have adopted moralistic theories of Christ's person and work as well as justification. On the other hand, I think that if Roger followed Arminianism to its logical conclusion, he should go on to deny that salvation is entirely of God's grace, that Arminianism leads inevitably to human-centered rather than God-centered convictions, if followed consistently. In other words, we each believe that the other person is inconsistent. At the end of the day, Roger suspects that monergism, that is, God alone working, undermines God's goodness and love, as well as human agency, and I cannot see how synergism can be reconciled with sola gratia, grace alone. Yet Roger knows that Calvinism does not teach that God is the author of evil, or that human beings have no responsibility, and it would be reckless for me to describe Arminianism as Pelagian. Although I'd still take exception to some of Roger's descriptions of Calvinism, I respect his commitment to engaging real differences rather than caricatures. For my part, I have learned much from Roger about the stated positions of leading Arminian theologians and appreciate his cautions and rebukes along the way. I also share Roger's appraisal of the state of much in contemporary evangelicalism. Far beyond Arminianism, he argues, Pelagian assumptions seem astonishingly prevalent. He agrees that Christless Christianity is simply pervasive in American church life. When Arminian friends like Tom Oden, William Willimon, and Roger Olson challenge this state of affairs, while some professing Reformed preachers sell their birthright for a deadly soup of folk religion, our differences, though important, are put in proper perspective. I have no doubt that James Arminius or John Wesley would be as offended as Roger Olson at what often passes erroneously for Arminianism today in many circles. I'm grateful to Roger for the candor, passion, and informed argumentation that this book represents. At the end of the day, Roger and I share the most important agreement, namely that the crucial questions involved in this or any other debate must be brought to the bar of Scripture. We both believe that Scripture is clear and sufficient, even if we are confused and weak. We are all pilgrims on the way, not yet those who have arrived at our glorious destination. Only by endeavoring more and more to talk to each other as co-heirs with Christ, instead of about each other and past each other as adversaries, can we engage with serious disagreements, and with the hope that we may also be surprised by felicitous agreements along the way. Michael Horton. Preface. I write this book reluctantly. Polemics is not my preferred style of scholarship. That is to say, I would rather proclaim what I am for than denounce what I am against. I value the ironic approach to theology, and I hope to be against Calvinism as ironically as possible. I want to make clear right up front that I am not against Calvinists. Many of my relatives are Calvinists, and I love them dearly. Although my immediate family was not theologically of that persuasion, we knew our relatives were every bit as Christian as we were. I still believe that to be the case. A person can be as marvelously saved and as dedicated a Christian as possible and be a Calvinist. Let me repeat, I am not against Calvinists. I'm well aware, however, how difficult it can be to separate one's sense of self-worth from one's passionately held beliefs. I hope my Aunt Margaret is not rolling over in her grave as this book is published, and I pray